Hello, welcome to a new episode of Talk Turkey. I'm Nevşin Mengü. I'm in Istanbul.
Hi, this is Murat Seyrek from Brussels. Nevşin, it's winter in Brussels, but in Turkey it's a warm winter by all means, I guess.
It is. I mean, it is like in Istanbul today, it's like 18 degrees Celsius. I mean, actually, this is an advantage for Erdogan because I know in Europe, because it's not a tough winter. And everybody says, oh, well, this is unlucky for Putin and whatnot, But in Turkey, actually, this is very lucky for Mr. Erdogan because we have, a very high inflation. And energy prices is one of the variants that really affect the prices. But since people are not using natural gas as much because you don't need to, it's just like summer basically. However, maybe summer is going to be hard. It's highly likely that there's going to be some sort of a drought during the summer. We'll see.
Well, it's politically warm as well, and then probably you'll have a very hot spring, especially May. So it is now the final countdown for the next presidential and parliamentary elections in Turkey. So it was normally set for 18 June, but Erdogan has already hinted that the elections will take place earlier on 14 May. And AKP does not call this snap elections, but an election date update. This is also how they describe rising prices, price update. So they are used to have this term. There are many speculations about if and how Erdogan can declare this date and whether it would be in line with the constitution. But I guess we can talk about this next time, and we can more focus on today the potential candidate of the opposition and his or her chance. Mm-hmm. And we'll actually probably talk a lot about these elections in the next 4 months. It's the most consequential elections in the contemporary history of Turkey. The opposition seems to be one step ahead, and this is happening first time in the last 21 years. The opposition has a good chance, but we shouldn't forget that Erdogan is also a master of winning elections. This fact should not be underestimated. Moreover, as we keep saying, it is also clear that we cannot talk about a fair playing ground for campaigning. One of the major determining factors will be the opposition's candidate or candidates, and whether all opposition parties will be supporting that candidate. Maybe just a reminder for our viewers, there are 6 opposition parties in Turkey. Well, there are more than 6 opposition parties, but 6 of them have formed an electoral alliance and potentially even a post-electoral coalition, actually. And we call them Table of 6. There are 2 big parties in this. Central left CHP, Republican People's Party, and central right Good Party, and then 4 smaller parties, including 2 AKP breakaway parties, Babacan's DEVA, Davutoğlu's Future Party, and then 2 small parties, 1 small Islamist party, Felisti, and 1 very small central right party, Democrat Party. So their candidate will be the main opposition candidate and potentially the only opposition candidate, depending on the position of pro-Kurdish HDP. That's why this selection process is very important, and people have been discussing this for weeks and months in Turkey. So the Table of 6 parties have been meeting regularly, and next week they will meet again and they will start to discuss their candidates. And the expectation is that they'll be declaring their joint candidate in about 2 weeks from now. Then there's also a small alliance of pro-Kurdish HDP with some far-left political parties. And while HDP has already declared that they're planning to have their own candidate for the first round, it is not certain yet. They may still change their mind, apparently, and they may simply support the candidate of the Table of 6. In any case, they will probably support this candidate in the second round. So that's why the candidate of Table of 6 actually has a good chance to be the next president of Turkey. So that's why maybe Nevşin, you can tell us a bit more about this process and the potential candidates.
Yes, yes. I mean, you said we can talk about this in the next video, but let me just summarize this with actually 2 sentences because
Sure.
it's very, very simple. One of the main issues of debates for now, though, I mean, I'm saying debate, but the opposition said, well, we're not gonna turn this into a debate. It doesn't matter. I mean, some people are criticizing this stance of the opposition too, but anyways, so the thing is, Turkey's a constitution, I mean, still, and in the constitution it says one person can only be elected twice as a president, and Erdogan is elected twice already as a president. So actually, some people, some professors they're saying basically, well, he cannot be a candidate actually officially. This is against the constitution. However, but then pro-AK party law people, they say no, his first term does not count, because back then Turkey was not a presidential system. So it was a different system, and the system has changed. So the first term does not count. So Erdogan can be a candidate again. But many of the people who study law academics, they're saying, well, that's not true, basically. According to the constitution, he cannot run again. But does it matter? It does not, because the opposition says we will not turn this into like a discussion point, because what the opposition can do is they can only take this to the High Electoral Committee, right? And this is the only body that they can decide on this matter. And you cannot take this body's decisions even to the Supreme Court. So whatever they say, it'll be that. And High Electoral Committee right now is even, I mean, the members, they seem to be pro-government. And 5 members of this committee are retiring in the forthcoming days. And 3 of them were known to be closer, in a sense, to the opposition, or known to be more objective. They're going. So new names will come. So the opposition says, I mean, even if we go to this high electoral body, whatever, it'll not make a difference. We'll just lose time. So the opposition says, well, if you want this to change, basically vote for us. Right now, it doesn't matter who we go to, whatever legal process we take, it's not going to change everything, because right now, basically, it's a one-man rule in Turkey and institutions are not functioning. So going to this institution, that institution does not make any difference. That's what the opposition says. So this is the path that they're taking. But as you said, the opposition, they also seem quite confident that they can win. First, let's start with the date, 14th of May. Why Erdogan chose 14th of May? Because it's a very symbolic date, actually, for Turkish center-right, in a sense, because this is the second time Turkey had elections. Turkish Republic was formed in 1923, and then it was a one-party system. In 1947, there were elections, but it was a very contested election. It was not a fair or free election. It was one party at that time. But in 1950, the conditions have changed a little bit. And then CHP, the party who basically established Turkish Republic, which was in charge of Turkey's one-party system, in the one-party system, they lost. And the Democrat Party, they won. So this was a benchmark for Turkey. Mr. Erdogan claims that AK Party his party is the continuation of Democrat Party. So he's making a reference to that date, and the slogan that the Democrat Party used at that time was "Yeter söz milletin," like enough. Now it's time for people to be heard, type of thing, right? However, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really fit, because
Probably the one party has changed. One party.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It was the 20s. Okay, CHP was the one party, different conditions, whatnot. But okay, who's the one party right now? It's not CHP, it's AK Party, right? It doesn't matter if you're conservative or whatnot. It's not the only variant, anyways. And so, I mean, I think it's very scandalous. Yes, Erdogan is known to be like a political animal and whatnot, but this date, this symbolism, I don't think that the people are going to buy this time. I mean, who's going to buy that? The AK Party has been in power in 20 years. He's the sole leader, like one-man system. And now you're again choosing the slogan of whatever, from 1950, and say, well, enough, now the people will talk. And
as if they have been talking in the last 21 years.
Yeah, I mean, duh. And the weird thing is, we have 2 alliances, as you said. One is Cumhur Alliance and the other is Millet Alliance. And Millet Alliance is the opposition. Millet Alliance means People's Alliance. You see, even like even I mean, even the slogan that he's using, it's working for the opposition. So I don't know. I mean, they
And
think
Democrat Party is in the Millet Alliance.
Democrat Party, yes, they're now like a much smaller
It's a
party. Yes,
minor
they
party.
are. They are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They as a minority party, they're in the. So I mean, party people in their circles, they think, wow, it's genius. Erdogan has come up with like a great idea again. Well, I don't think it's that. It's kind of laughable in a sense. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure if this comes across like as a surprise, and then they've been really making big strategies about it. We have been talking about this a little bit, like if there's a grand strategy behind all these actions, but we realize that there's none actually, and we have always been accusing opposition of making mistakes, but I think the government side has been making even more mistakes lately, and this also shows that they are not really stable in a sense that self-trust, and then also believing that they are winning these elections. I think they're also panicking from their own side. But
You are right.
but then it's clear that they have a candidate. I mean, do we have a candidate in the opposition?
I think we kind of do. We sort of do. I think Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the head of CHP, is going to run as a presidential candidate. I mean, some of the smaller parties within the People's Alliance have been saying this vocally, like Temel Karamollaoğlu, the head of the what is it now? Is it Fazilet
Felicity Party.
Yeah, Felicity Party. They changed names, so I forget. But he said, well, it should be Kemal Bey running anyway. So there is that. I mean, E Party is kind of, they're having second thoughts about that. They are having second thoughts, not because they don't like Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, but they're like, can he win? Because he's not like a charismatic type, he's older, whatnot. Because there are other names like Ekrem İmamoğlu, the mayor of Istanbul, and Mansur Yavaş, mayor of Ankara. In the polls, they seem to be ahead, ahead of Erdogan, and even ahead of Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu if they run. However, so the system, the opposition promises is like they say, so we're going to change the system from presidential system to parliamentarian system. So the president that we're going to elect in 2 years, we're going to have this transitional period, and in 2 years, the person that we're going to elect is just going to be a symbolic person. That's it. He's going to be like a symbolic president, just balancing stuff, not really acting. It's not going to be a presidential system. So we need like a wise character, maybe calmer, older, in a sense, maybe like Joe Biden type, like in the United States, balancing
It's also called
stuff.
grandpa democracy, right?
Yeah, good one, right? So I mean, if this is going to be the case, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu might be the right candidate, the right name for that. So, and from what I'm hearing from the CHP circles, like they're saying it's a done deal. It's going to be Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu who's going to be the candidate. I mean, and I think he might win. He has a chance. Okay, he's not as strong.
What are we waiting for then?
Exactly. Nobody. I mean, this table of six. They're like the EU. Actually, Murat, you're in Brussels. EU bureaucracy, right? So the table of six is like that. I mean, I think if we have a governmental change and table of six, if they take the power, I think it's like if Turkey enters the EU, we're not going to have any problems because it just works exactly the same. They're having their little committees within themselves, subcommittees to committees, so they're discussing everything bit by bit. The committees, and then it goes to the leaders, and then leaders discuss something, and they're all equals. These 6 leaders. This is being criticized by some, but these 6 leaders, no matter how much your vote is, like you can be like a small party who has like a 3% of the votes, you're still, if you're the leader, you're the same, the equal as say Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu or Meral Akşener, who's the head of the E Party, the center-right party, but they're all equals. So they are, compromising again about every issue and everything. So it's going a little slow, and they're being, I think, over careful. That's the reason. Mm-hmm. They say now they're gonna officially announce their candidate during February.
Mm-hmm. We'll see that, and I guess they're also discussing more than the candidate actually, because there will be a candidate, and constitutionally you need to have a presidential candidate, but in Turkey you don't need to have vice president candidates. But it's also one of the points, as far as we understand. I mean, there's no official statement, but also they are discussing to have vice president candidates as well, and potentially the other leaders. So if Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu runs for president, the other leaders will be running for vice president. So this can also give them a boost. And in any case, I mean, also Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu may be not my favorite candidate either, but all candidates have pros and cons. And moreover, these elections will also be about one fundamental question: whether Turkey will continue with Erdogan or not. In this sense, I believe that even if some people will be clearly unhappy about the candidate of the opposition, a big majority will be supporting the candidate. We like it or not, there's going to be an election between pro-Erdogan camp and anti-Erdogan camp. And anti-Erdogan camp seems to have a good chance. And I don't think people would want to ruin this opportunity. So, and the negotiations, I mean, and that table of 6, yes, they've been negotiating a lot, but it's going relatively well, even if there are crises. It's stable so far, and they managed to control the crisis, manage the crisis. And we don't know much about how this is going to work, but I guess together with the candidate, we may also learn more about vice presidents, but even potentially the post-election strategy as well, including maybe even the how they are going to divide the ministries as well, at least the major ones. So this is quite unique in that sense that the opposition is even preparing a sort of post-election government. They are so confident that they are going to win. They are even sort of discussing and negotiating the coalition strategy. That's quite unique, probably. But then table of 6 is not only opposition. There's also an opposition from the other side, the pro-Kurdish HDP and some far-left parties, and then some small marginal parties. Maybe we should also talk a little bit about them too.
True. Emek ve Özgürlük İttifakı, while the Coalition of Labor and Freedom. Yes, HDP is in that, and Turkish Labour Party, like a communist party. So they are together. They're smaller parties. Well, actually, they're kind of popular among young people, though. Let me tell you. So I mean, I'm seeing among young people, you either have this far right nationalism, secular Turkish nationalism. That's a new phenomenon, and then this, kind of, in a sense, far communist tendencies. I mean, it's normal for young people. When you're younger, you're like that, a little bit. You come to the center as you get older. Haven't we all, in a sense, But there is, but of course, with the biggest potential is HDP. So the Kurdish party. So Kurdish party, while they are, HDP is saying they are prone to vote for opposition's presidential candidate. They have been announcing this, but what they want is open negotiations. Because HDP is kind of sidelined. They're now kind of, in a sense, demonized. Because this is the AK Party policy, they've been stamped as like the party of terrorists, whatnot. So nobody dares to talk to them and everything. The nationalist base in Turkey is so against HDP. So even the opposition, there are the nationalists. So they don't want to be seen in cahoots or in cooperation with HDP, obviously. So it's a tricky road in a sense. So what HDP says, like they want to be legalized. They're saying, well, I mean, we are a legal political party, so you have to come and talk to us. If you want our voters to vote for your person, to vote for your candidate, you have to come and talk to us. We want to have a say in this presidential candidate, who this person is going to be. We want to have a say. And HDP says openly, like, we don't want any ministries or something, but we just want to be legalized and talk to you guys. So that's tricky. And the opposition was kind of avoiding that, because the opposition thought, anyways, Kurds are going to vote for the opposition. What choice do they have? They cannot vote for Erdogan. So they're going to, vote for the opposition anyways. But then HDP, they made the move, and they announced Well, so if the opposition does not talk to us, we're going to have our own candidate, presidential candidate. What does that mean? That means that the Kurdish voters, which is around 10% of the population, are not going to directly vote for the opposition's candidate. They're going to vote for HDP's candidate. And in this case, the presidential race could go to the second round. And going to the second round could be tricky. But even as of today, some HDP MPs, they're saying, well, we're not closing the doors. We're not saying that we're going to have our own candidate for certain. We can still support the opposition's candidate and not our own candidate, but we want talks. We want, fair, open talks with the opposition.
And they seem to be, in principle, at least happy with Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, right? So potentially
they vocalize that. They vocalize that.
Yeah. And then the second point is which HDP as well. I mean, they have their current co-chairs, and then they also have Demirtas in prison, the former chair of the party. And sometimes his approach is much more open and liberal in a way to reach out to opposition and also to support the candidates. So we should also note this. And for the small parties, I mean, yes, they will be very important. I'm quite skeptical about whether they will really get such big votes from even young people, because such parties, especially communist parties, I mean, since I was a kid, all these like far left parties in Turkey, they've been very popular during the election campaigns, but then they've always ended up with like 0.5% or 1%. And this may well be the case, but even 0.5% can be very important. That's also important this time. That's why cooperation between political parties will be important. This actually gives a unique opportunity to small or marginal parties. Considering the threshold, under normal circumstances, some of these parties would have no chance. But thanks to these electoral alliances now, and the big parties, they really need them. So they have a good chance to be represented. So on the one hand, this is a good and positive development for political participation and representation. But on the other hand, this is also a bit problematic. And that's why some people in opposition is criticizing this, because small parties, sometimes they also try to dictate their agenda. So this is a bit problematic with their very small baseline. So just to summarize, maybe before going into what is expecting us in terms of opinion polls, yes, there are many small parties, but overall, we talk about actually 5 main parties. So AKP, its alliance partner, nationalist MHP. And in the opposition side, we have central left CHP, central right Good Party, and finally pro-Kurdish HDP. So these are the 5 main parties. And maybe we can check now the first graphic about opinion polls at the moment.
Yes, this one, right?
Yeah.
Who gets what?
I mean, just to make it easier maybe for the viewers, actually here, how we should read this graphic is government's alliance is around 40%, meaning AKP plus MHP. Yeah. And opposition, including alliances and parties out of the alliances, is around 60%. That's the main message, I guess, of this.
Yes, it looks like that. And as you see, CHP is the main opposition party. This is 25.5%. HDP is a key party, 9.7%. This is the Kurdish party that we're talking about. And all these small parties like Deva Partisi, Saadet Partisi, whatnot, they are with the opposition. They're important. E Party, like they are, they have 13%. That's important. MHP. That's with AK Party, so they seem to be losing strength. By the way, it's we need to actually note that Zafer Partisi, you are seeing at the very, very bottom. This is the neo-nationalist, secularist Turkish nationalist party, like a new phenomenon in Turkish politics. Good to note that. So that's like
anti-refugee
in Germany, and So they ask people, which one would you prefer, parliamentarian system or the presidential system? Only 34% says we like the presidential system. We want it to continue. Actually, this shows us the hardcore AK Party, die-hard, voters. they're around this 30%. That's it. They're stuck. These are the people, and the rest 60% is the opposition. So as you see here openly, the opposition's potential, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, this even includes a part of MHP voters, actually, even if they are AKP's partner.
Oh yes, MHP is having a division within. MHP is having a division within themselves right now, also. So, yeah, would you vote for Erdogan? I would never ever vote for him. It's all 52%.
I mean,
That's
this is very important because Erdogan will need to change then the opinion of I will never ever vote for him group as well as the undecided group. So this is a major challenge. I mean, if these people really mean never, one can even say that this is over. I mean, he doesn't have a chance. But we shouldn't forget that maybe some of these people may simply decide not to vote at all. So that's also a possibility. But the voter turnout is in Turkish elections is usually quite high. We should also remind that. Last time, I think it was around 86%. So this time we may even have a higher percentage because people are really very political, very motivated. So things are not very easy for Erdogan. And as we keep saying, the ball is in the opposition's court. I mean, if they play it well, and if they manage to consolidate the big majority of the opposition voters, then they really have a good chance.
Yeah, that is correct. And as you can see, different scenarios. If Tayyip Erdoğan runs against Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, if he runs against Ekrem İmamoğlu and Mansur Yavaş, the mayor of Ankara, seems to be the most favorite candidate. İmamoğlu 50%, he gets 50%, and Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, well, in the former polls, he was not actually passing Erdogan. It looked like he would lose, but as the election nears, people tend to be more favorable towards Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, it seems.
He's certainly, I think, increasing his popularity. But also, as I said, I mean, people, I guess, realize that there's a good chance he's going to be the candidate. And as so many people are more in the anti-Erdogan camp rather than pro-X or Y, I guess people are getting more familiar with him and then they're planning to support him. And this may even change further when the campaign is launched, because you may also see, as we discussed, the other leaders as candidates for vice presidents as well. So that could also work well in a way to consolidate the opposition voters.
Yes, so I mean, actually, in the international circles, you're hearing also, the thing is, the atmosphere is like, well, opposition has no chance. This is one-man rule. What chance they have? I mean, polls say it differently. Polls say the opposition really has a chance. It's mostly because of the economy, obviously. And when the economy goes bad, everything else goes bad with it, basically, because it's a party, it's a populist party. Everything is politicized. And on the other hand, everything, like his system, stands on the bribes, in a sense, he gives to people. This is the AK Party system. They found a way to give everyone some little welfare money type of thing. If you're like a single woman, they give you some little money. If you're something else, like if you're like a young person, they give you something, a little money, through the municipalities, through this, through this and that, ministries, this and that. But it doesn't catch up because of the inflationist policies that they're having. Literally, people have become poorer, and it has become literally much harder to sustain a living in Turkey. That's his biggest enemy, to be honest.
And I mean, this is also not just the conclusions of the opinion polls. I mean, when we see the reactions of the government, we see the same trend. They seem to have concerns about these elections. It's also one of the reasons behind updating the date of the elections as well, because they believe that in June things can continue to be worse in terms of economy, and also the second round of elections, if it's in the end of June, beginning of July, then it may also be a further trouble for them. So they see the risk and they do their best to avoid. But in my opinion, if the opposition plays the ball well, they don't really have possibility to change this trend, because this 40 to 60% trend is a major challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we'll see. We still have a time ahead, and it's going to be a hot 5-6 months in Turkey.
Yeah, probably next time we'll be talking about candidate of the opposition. Hopefully, if they
Yes, your
if they
topic.
finally agree.
Okay, guys, then till
Till
next time.
time.